Hello, my fabulous students. Welcome back to the wonderful world of chemistry. Today, instead of ionics, we are going to learn how to write and name covalent compounds. We will use that same IUPAC system so that we can get it right. And you'll find this one's a little bit easier. We're not going to have to deal so much with the crisscross. We're going to have to deal with a little bit of prefixes. So we're going to use prefixes like crazy on this one. Let's just dive right into this, huh? Rules for naming covalents. We got to remember that, of course, a covalent is two nonmetals, a nonmetal and a nonmetal. Okay, this is where we get some extra terms. A binary compound is two elements. A ternary compound is three elements. The only note I want to make is if you look at CO2, I have one carbon and I have two oxygens, which equals three atoms. But notice it's two elements. So it's not the atom. So I don't want you to get confused by that, okay? Let me give you a little carrot for a stem book real quick. Ternary. I will probably make a mistake in class more than once where I'm going to call it tertiary. Now, I can't even remember if that's because that's how we do it in acid bases, or if somebody just taught it to me wrong, or maybe I was just not feeling well that day when I learned it. But for some reason, I always think tertiary, not ternary. But that's just saying. So you come tell me, Mr. Milks, it's ternary, not tertiary, and you get yourself stem buck. So procedures for naming them, we're going to basically just use prefixes to tell me how many. So we're not going to have to, do that crisscross as much because we're going to know right how many there are based on what it says. So here are the subscripts. This is in your reference tables. There's one exception. We don't use mono on the first element name in the compound, right? Because it'd be like carbon monoxide. So there's a good one. So I have carbon, and I know it's only one because even though it doesn't say mono, and it says monoxide. So then it's just CO. I don't call it monocarbon monoxide. That's a little bit redundant even for chemistry. But we will have to use a prefix on the beginning if it's something other than one. So these will come along pretty quickly. So we always write the least electronegative element first, followed by the most electronegative element last. Subscripts tell you what the prefix is going to be in each element. So carbon dioxide. I have carbon, leave off the mono on the first. I have two oxygens. That's going to go to dioxide. Pretty quick. Of course, we're going to end in "ide," just like we did before. So let's see if we can do these real quick. I got one carbon, so that's carbon, not monocarbon, and then monoxide. And believe it or not, I believe the rule should say if your stem starts in a vowel like oxide, we're going to drop the O on the mono. All right, so I have one carbon, so that's carbon. What is the prefix for two? Right, we just did it, dioxide. It's not a capital O, by the way. I just write big sometimes. So here's one. These next two, I have prefixes in the beginning. Let me skip down to this one here because it looks more fun. So I have two nitrogens, so that's dinitrogen. And five, I believe, was penta, correct? I'll just look it up to make sure I get it right. And you know what? It might not even be in our reference tables. You're actually going to have to memorize these. Mr. Milk, say it isn't so. Oh my goodness, it is so. We're going to have to memorize these. Let me just flip back to that chart. I'm going to need it. Well, 5 is penta. Good. So my instincts were right. Which there are sometimes. Pentaoxide. Okay. Pentoxide. Okay. So you guys do the rest. There's only one other one here, the other nitrogen one where there's a prefix on the first atom. Now we got to go backwards. So we go forwards, we got to be able to go backwards. One nitrogen, N, one oxygen, O, N-O. Down here, bromine, 1Br pentachloride, which is 5 chlorines. Okay. Dinitrogen pentasulfate. Dinitrogen is 2 nitrogens. Sulfide is sulfur, and penta is 5. Nitrogen, dinitrogen pentasulfate. Tetras 4. Tetras 4. So you're getting the hang of these. The other big trick that you're going to have is when I start, like in the practice, when I start looking at these names, these names came up on the covalent, notes. And before the ionic notes, we did all ionic compounds. The thing that you're going to need to be able to do is now look at this name real fast and see carbon tetrafluoride. Well, tetrafluoride, I would never say that in an ionic compound. So there's a give me or a tell to tell me that it's covalently bonded. Plus, I also have now carbon and fluorine, 2 nonmetals. So I can tell that this is a covalently bonded compound, and I will use the covalent naming scheme. So what I'm trying to say to you is when it comes time to the test or a quiz, when we're naming things like this, I'm not going to tell you that it's ionic or covalent. You need to know the naming rules so that you can decide just by the name what it is. If you have symbols, you should be able to tell from the symbols real quick, metal, non-metal, or do your END test either way. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We are done with this video. It's a little bit shorter than last one, thank goodness, just under 8 minutes, and we are done. We can now do ionics and covalents, and I will see you guys tomorrow.